So growing up, I had two birthdays. I grew up with my one American birthday, which is February 11th, 2002. And I grew up with my Ethiopian birthday, which is Yekatit for 1994. And so for that reason, like time has always been really loose to me because I've always been aware of the fact that time is a construct that we believe in rather than it being as real as it is. Because in Ethiopia right now, it's 2018. You see what I'm saying? But in America and the rest of the world, it is 2026. And it's because in the late 1500s, I want to say 1592, the rest of the world committed to the Gregorian calendar, which colonized and standardized time as something like that. Whereas Ethiopia decided, nah, we gonna stick to this. And so for me, time has always been loose because I've been in between in that sense, in that limbo. And with that, it also makes me aware of the ways in which time has been used culturally and the distinctions of it. So in America, time is kind of like more treated with speed. In America, people appreciate results, they appreciate the end product, and I would say overall, there is a lack of appreciation of process. And due to that, I think that also has a lot to do with our connection to the internet as well, that has sped up our perception of time in that sense, and as well as made us feel that things should be instant. Whereas in Ethiopia, I would say that there's an appreciation of becoming and allowance of process. And with that, there's more space within that and time to become who you are rather than being treated as though you're supposed to be who you are already. And so with that, it creates a lot of politicking with our just existing in the bare minimum ways. People expect, and we expect in America, that things should be done on our time and there's a specific timeline that we can control and dictate. Where the truth of that I receive in Ethiopian culture is that there's, to an extent, there's things we can't control. But honestly, most things are really out of our control. And there's a need to surrender. Surrendering is something that I think in America is hard culturally because we don't live in a culture that promotes surrendering. We live in a culture that promotes using your hands, your blood, sweat, and tears, even if it's not what aligns with your heart or who you are. Whereas in Ethiopia, I think that there is more of a trust of the becoming in the process in order to allow yourself to feel that alignment and to do things as they come, plus the inspired action of that. You see what I'm saying? Whereas, so the contrast of that has always been something kind of hard. And I would say that just that aspect of it has made my existence difficult to find understanding in with others, which also led me to not seeking it and just seeking to understand, because culturally there's so many implications that we don't understand or see because we assume so much of it, and we don't realize how much of our culture isn't actually shared in America. And we don't recognize that meaning is something that's separated, and we don't have an understanding of what things mean on a literal term, right? Because we have like a fifth grade English level here. So we literally don't know definitions for what they are. We only know the definitions of things as they've meant to us and as they've came to us through our experiences. And so for me, I was someone who tried to learn words and learn all the communications, etc., of how to speak emotionally, socially, all that stuff, because I didn't get it and I didn't really have many conversations as a child. So with that, I learned that still finding all the words, it still could just make everything worse, because a lot of things weren't a matter of what you were saying, how you're saying it, what you were doing. Is just a matter of how people feel in moments that are passing moments, right? And that's another thing. Moments are passing. Here, we're not taught enough that moments are just passing, feelings are just passing. We're taught to identify with the feeling, I am sad, rather than saying that I'm experiencing sadness. We're taught that this trauma is why I am the way I am. This trauma isn't why you are the way you are. This trauma is something you've experienced, and you got the choice now because of that trauma to decide what you're going to do with that. You see what I'm saying? Culture matters a lot more than we give it credit for because we assume it doesn't matter. And to me, I've always recognized that culture is important at the large scale because that culture at the large scale impacts who you are, who you come to be, and who you show up to be at the core of who you are. Because internally, that's the culture that you assume because of where you are. And for me, I was around so many cultures, so it was hard to understand who I was until really like I got to high school when I decided that I don't have to have these fractured senses of self that showing up in these places to adjust to other people. I could just be me. You see what I'm saying? I don't have to fit to everyone's needs. I can fit to myself and then work from there. However, because of the culture that we do have here, that's something that always experiences tension and difficulty. Because it's just really different. And oftentimes, instead of understanding difference, we just project the difference. And we project what we think either of that difference and what we think of ourselves from our lack of patience because of culturally we don't allow ourselves to use the capacity and availability that we do have. However, life also is happening at the same time to everyone. You see what I'm saying? It's just so much deeper than we treat it. And there's not enough time, space in a 60-second video to say that unless it is said in a simple way of this, right? What's vitamin water to you may not always be vitamin water to me. What's vitamin water to you might just be water for me. And what's vitamin water for me may just be water to you. And that's okay. But we gotta understand that that's okay. And that's the thing. We don't get trained to understand that that's okay in America. We don't get trained to know that that's okay in the world enough. So it's our job to, but it's also our job to understand and have the patience and to give the benefit of the doubt and to give the consideration that maybe everyone actually is trying to do the right thing and they're understanding. And maybe it's my fault for allowing myself to be overcome by the tides of the ocean to the point where I don't even give the space to understand that because I only am worried for myself. We became self-absorbed because our culture bases us to be self-absorbed. Because that's at the root of this country. Daddy issues and a victim mentality. And the supposed dehumanization when we literally brought people here, called them slaves instead of telling them that they were enslaved. And then from that repeated the cycle traumatically. And now that's what we go through day by day, structurally, with relationships at every level of society. The same way they talked about trickle-down economics, trickle-down traumanomics. Follow for more. This is what I try to do through music, because in America, music is the only way. It's like culture cannot be transformed through anything else. And that's why so many people try to make music, because that's the only way we can make a way for everyone to realize we can be more free than we think to be. You know? I'm probably just gonna get back to my shit, but yeah, check out the music or check out the stuff. This is more about who I am and where I come from. But I don't do this because I'm your leader. I do this because I'm here to help you get triggered to feel something so you can lead yourself back home. And that's all.